Hello and welcome to the Old Tunes Fresh Takes podcast, where we learn old tunes, record fresh takes of them and encourage you to do the same.
This is for musicians of all styles and abilities, so if you've got a sonic deconfabulator or you're into a bit of metronome abuse, we want to hear from you. We don't care if your version is recorded on your phone or with a cup and string, we want to hear it.
And you certainly don't have to consider yourself a folk musician. We're especially keen to hear from people who could change these songs into something completely different, an entirely fresh take.
So we've only got one more episode left after this one, which is on the song Young William. If you'd like to take part in that, visit our Facebook, Twitter and SoundCloud pages. There you'll find a chord sheet, score and lyrics. Links to these pages can be found in the description of this episode. Remember while you're there to follow, like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on.
We always reply to messages and are really keen to make it as easy as possible for you to submit. So whatever stage you're at, get in touch and we'll be happy to provide feedback and advice.
We've got some great contributions this month from artists including Asymptotes, Blue Jeans, Lucy Brissenden, Catapholc, Cerys Hafana, Jon and Jane Hearson, Ian Jackson, John Paiva, James Parrish and Kev Pritchard. We'll be playing a clip from each as we discuss them. If you'd like to listen along to the full takes of us, which we really recommend, there's a link to the playlist in the description to this episode.
This month we're looking at Geordie, and we've been lucky enough to recruit the help of folk musician, podcast host and traditional song enthusiast Jon Wilks. We'll be playing a segment of the chat that we had with him about Geordie in just a minute, but if you want to hear the full conversation, keep an eye out on our social media as we'll be posting it in a few days' time.
I'm Jack the Robot.
And I'm Tim Woodson. Okay, let's dive in. Great, so we've got Jon Wilks in from the Old Songs podcast.
Hello.
It's very exciting. Jon, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm just fascinated with traditional songs. You know, most of my waking hours and probably quite a lot of my hours spent asleep are spent thinking about traditional songs and where they come from and who sang them originally. And why a song like the one that we want to talk about today, you know, was possibly first published in 1601, and yet here we are in 2020, still fascinated by it.
Cool, yeah.
Great, yeah. Well, I guess our regular listeners will know that me and Jack are not particularly experts in the history of traditional song. So I'm sure you can hear exactly why we brought Jon on today.
Yeah, well, let me just say, I mean, I think there are far more expert people out there than me. I mean, I came to this only about 5 years ago to traditional music, but I came to it with a passion, and I as a former journalist, I wanted to learn about it and share what I was learning with other people. And so I originally started by writing a blog. I started recording albums of these songs, the ones that fascinated me, and in the end it turned into a podcast, which was the Old Songs podcast.
Yeah.
In the Old Songs podcast, basically each episode is one of these songs, and we deep dive into it for, you know, it can be up to an hour and a half just talking about one song and where it came from and who sang it best and why it travelled and all of these kind of things.
What, Desert Island Discs do 6, do they? Forget, that's too many, isn't it?
That's far too many.
Hey, also, quick shout out for your album Midlife, which is a brilliant album, songs collected from Birmingham, isn't it?
It is, thank you very much. I didn't know you'd listen to that.
I sent it to my mum because she's from Birmingham, but I've been singing, I can't find Brummagem. It's wonderful, it's brilliant.
Thank you.
So you just said 1601 for Geordie, this song.
I did.
I didn't have a year, but where's that from?
Jack. We'll get there, Jack. We'll get to that.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, go on. Take us on the journey.
When you go into old songs and traditional songs, naturally there is a tendency to want to know how old it is.
Yeah, for sure.
There's almost a competitive thing.
Yeah.
Is this an old one? Are we talking about an old one? Or is this some music hall nonsense from the 1870s? But yeah, this is one of the ones that you might call an old one. So Child registered 14 versions from Scotland and 2 broadsides from England. The broadsides dated to the 17th century. And if you go to the library, the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library at Cecil Sharp House in London, I think I found 328 references to Geordie. So,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you can see, 382 references to Geordie. So even
Wow. And so by traditional song metrics, that's a pretty popular one then.
there are bigger ones, but it's a big one, and it's and it's an old one. And what you find is a great thing that you can look at on that Vaughan Williams Memorial Library website is you can arrange the songs by Google Map. So it will show you
Oh, wow.
exactly where it was collected. And as soon as you do that, it loads up and you start seeing all these pins populating the map. So I mentioned that it was 1601. That seems to be the earliest sort of printed version that has been found. So there's an early version that was found in the Pepys collection, so Samuel Pepys.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
He used to collect them, and so he found one that's possibly printed as early as the 1670s, where it was known as The Life and Death of George of Oxford. The earlier one that I mentioned before was probably as early as 1601, but could have been as late as 1640. They haven't got an exact date for it. At that point, it had the especially catchy title of A Lamentable New Ditty made upon the death of a worthy gentleman named George Stool, dwelling sometime on Gateside Moor and sometime at Newcastle in Northumberland, with his penitent end.
Oh, snappy.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be a banger.
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And somehow, and this is what I love about traditional music, somehow that has come down to Geordie.
Yeah. Which tells you nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. What is quite clear is that there are two obvious roots to it, two distinct roots. In some ways, it can almost be seen as two distinct songs, but they're always married by a certain set of lyrics or a certain narrative point.
Right, yeah.
Certainly there's the versions that Martin Carthy, he sang a wonderful one as a younger man, and then he returned to a completely different version as an older man. And I think, that's a fascinating thing of, I don't know if it's unique, but it's certainly not uncommon in a traditional music career, perhaps, that you could do that you could actually record several versions of the same song, or what's ostensibly the same song, and have them sound unrecognisable to one another.
Is now a good time to have a quick listen to the earlier of the Martin Carthy
Go
version?
for it, yeah.
Now as I rode out of a London bridge on a misty morning early, I overheard a fair pretty maid who cried for the life of a Geordie. Go bridle to me a milk-white steed, bridle me a pony. I'll ride down to London town and I'll plead for the life of me Geordie, for he never stole ox, he never...
So a few years ago, I was lucky enough to have Martin Carthy round to my house, which was extraordinary for me because I've been a huge Martin Carthy fan since I was about 17 years old. One of the things we talked about actually was Geordie.
Right.
Actually, on my website, jonwilks.online, I've got the whole of the Martin Carthy interview that I did that we took 3 to 4 hours to do, and I've transcribed the whole lot.
Yeah, great.
And I asked him about Geordie, so I'll just read to you what he said about it. And so he says, John Peirce gave me Geordie in 1960, I think, and I was very happy. It was my signature piece for a few years, and then I abandoned it after a while, thinking it was old stuff, and I just put it away. And then I got a chance to make a programme out of stuff for the BBC using their sound archives. And one of the recordings I used was of Louisa Hooper, who worked in the vicarage where Cecil Sharp first started collecting songs. He goes on to say that it was through hearing those recordings that it made him want to sing it again, and he started rearranging the tune, and it's that version, it's that coming back to it in the early 70s on the album Crown of Horn. He talks a lot in that interview about shifting the tonal centre. Clearly something that he was very, very proud of. And then as he got older, he's obviously, it's a song that's hung around, and he's done a different version, which perhaps you can play now.
Yeah, absolutely.
For what has Georgie done on Shooter's Hill? Was it stealing or murder of Annie? Oh, he's told 16 of the Lord Judge's dear, and we sold him down under the valley. Oh, sad.
So that version he talks about, he learnt that from a chap called Levi or Levi Smith. And Levi Smith was a traveller. And he said, I heard Levi Smith and I'm thinking, what the hell is that? I listened to it again and again, and that apparently throwaway version of it, it's kind of speak singing. And by that time, I'd listened to quite a lot of very old recordings, so my ears were getting quite sharp. And that's how you find stuff. Don't question what you're hearing, just absorb it, because those people knew what they were doing. And when I heard his brother singing it, he's singing the same thing, but he sticks in a couple of variations. That line, Geordie shall hang in chains of gold. It's all about paying attention to what people sing, especially the gypsy singers, because they're doing some amazing things. They sing the tunes that are handed down to them, but it's often in the cracks. That's what really works for me.
Right.
What he's talking about there is not just finding two versions of the song, but also how he's approaching the song as a much older performer himself, and also as a listener. The other version that I think is worth listening to is a version by my lovely friend Nick Hart, who records traditional music in such a wonderful way. He's a student of traditional music. He has a very similar problem with traditional music to I have, in that it keeps him awake at night.
Yeah.
Anybody who he happens to be sharing a house with.
Great, so we'll just have a quick listen to that now. This is Nick Hart with Geordie from his album Nick Hart Sings 9 English Folk Songs.
My Geordie never stole house nor land, nor has he murdered any, but he stole 6 of the king's wild deer, and he sold them in Fancany. Well,
His was collected from a book called Folk Songs Collected in Cambridgeshire.
Yeah.
It was compiled by a woman called Mary Humphreys. And Nick said Cambridgeshire is my home county. And this version comprises a tune collected in Foulmere, a mile away from my father's native village of Thriplow. And the words are from a Mr. Pamplin of Fenditton, where my auntie Nonnie lives. And then he just very basically says, I've removed 2 of the verses because I didn't like them.
Oh, great.
And that's the editing side of traditional music.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to take bits and pieces out of songs, and quite often people will come to traditional songs and find that that the sentiment of them doesn't fit with modern times, doesn't fit with modern sensibilities, and so therefore will make changes. And I think that's how the song lives, how it survives. To pretend that wouldn't have happened at some point in previous decades and previous centuries is a little bit silly, I think.
Oh yeah, this is a fantastic endorsement. I'll be turning your voice up through this section. Yeah, a bit more echo, the voice of God coming.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jon. It's been really wonderful. I could listen to you talk all evening.
Oh, that's very kind of you. People often say to me, I could listen to you all evening, and I really don't think they're being sincere, but thank you for saying it anyway. So,
well, it's been great having you on the show. And yeah, go and check out the Old Songs podcast and check out Midlife. It's a great album, and go and check out Jon's website for more writings.
Thank you, chaps.
Cheers, Jon.
Oh, what a lovely man. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so if you've enjoyed that conversation, then just remember to keep an eye out on our Facebook and Twitter pages. We'll be posting the full conversation in the next few days. And don't forget to go and have a listen to the Old Songs podcast for more in-depth analysis of traditional songs.
Cool. So, Tim, you've done 2 versions this month. We've got Geordie and Spare Me the Life. We're going to have a little listen to a bit of Spare Me the Life now.
So I'd actually already got the first version of this, my first version of this, recorded before we recorded the last episode.
Your first version being the one titled Geordie, not Spare Me the Life.
That's right. That's right. So we've just heard a clip from Spare Me the Life.
Yeah.
So with all my versions, I wanted to have a sort of straightforward take where I go through the tune as it's written, or, following a version through and maybe making a few subtle tweaks elsewhere. But I've kind of seen as other people have gone and really kind of torn them apart and pasted them back together. I thought actually there's more that you can say with these tunes than just playing the versions through as they are. So even though I'd already got that first one recorded, I wanted to actually go and reflect a bit more and see what else we could do with this. So what I've done with Spare Me the Life is I've taken 2 verses out of it, and I kind of wanted it to be, there's the line in the verse in it where it talks about the poor folks outside the courthouse.
Yeah, and she's handing them money.
Yeah, I kind of wanted this to be like almost like the crowd's refrain. It's still very much from her voice, but actually it did make me think again. We mentioned it a few episodes ago, but the George Floyd thing. I mean, partly it's just the name, but actually, somebody who's being disproportionately punished for a minor crime.
Right.
I felt there was a parallel there. So I almost thought there's a bit of a protest tune somewhere within this.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took those 2 verses and repeated them round and round. And the first version I sent to you was just those verses with kind of, more voices being added to them as it went along.
Yeah. I wanted to hear more vocal manipulation.
Right.
Because I thought, like, if you've got 2 versions of this, then one needs to be very contrasting to the other. And the first version you sent me through was just relatively clean vocals.
Yes.
Compared to what you've ended up with.
I was asking you how I might go about this.
So just my idea was just copying out the same vocal line and then just apply different effects to each version, but cut and chop and change between them for like each word or each phrase.
Yeah, and I thought, do you know what, that sounds doable. So I had a go. Just got 4 banks. I couldn't even tell you what I've done to them now because I just threw loads of stuff at
Distortion, pitch shifting.
Yeah,
there must be some chorus in there.
Yeah. I've reversed some of them as well.
Right, throw everything at it. Kitchen
sink, threw it all at it, and this is what came out. And I think it's really unsettling, and I love it.
Yeah, you went way further than I thought you would, which is I love. That's great.
Yeah, and if I had to retrofit a justification onto it, I could tell you it's about it's a comment on the difficulty of communication in the modern age. Things get but whatever. It's just because I like chopping up vocals and it's fun.
Yeah.
You always push me to talk about the drums.
Yeah.
I am very happy to talk about the drums on this one.
Yeah.
It starts off with this clattering, unsettling beat, which kind of runs through most of the piece pretty much. As the kind of piece takes off a little bit, you hear another version of this over the top, which is raising the intensity even more. I think your partner Kylie, she said that it slaps. I'm happy to take that.
Yeah. Kylie said the beat slaps. I concur that it is, in fact, fire.
Yes. Thanks.
Fire folk, mate. Fire folk.
Fire folk. There it is. Yeah. Hashtag fire folk. I also wanted to add in, this is something I did before I started putting this version together, actually, as I was just playing around. But the last time you hear it is this sort of chipmunk-esque.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. Very Bon Iver.
Yeah. To put this together, I took the same lines from my original version, and I wanted to try and work out how I could harmonize it without actually recording in another harmony. This is what I put together, and it sounded terrible, so I then shifted it up the octave and stuck a load of effects on it. Again, another form of manipulation, how unsettling it is. But that's all using pitch shifting within Ableton and again, our favourite plugin, Graylon, auto-tune plugin.
It sounds a little bit like the shaky nature of it, in the way it almost sounds like it's like on an old piece of recording equipment or something. It almost could like be an old folk singer, like Nancy Whiskey style or
Jeannie Robertson, yeah. And that's very much the vibe I wanted to capture, this old record player. So I've got it warping as well, with the pitch, so it just kind of goes in and out of tune a little bit, and yeah,
lovely. I tell you what, just tell me a little bit about your other take, Geordie, because I think you said it's all bass guitar, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I think what I felt like as I've been getting more and more electronic with my processes is I thought I want to actually go back to my roots as a bassist.
Right, yeah.
So I started putting together this version as just layering it up and adding some effects to each channel to give them a bit of a different voice.
Yeah. And there's some harmonics in there, is there?
There is. Using harmonics to get that higher register, and then later on when it comes in with a more of it sounds a bit like a distorted guitar was the vibe I was going for, sort of solo type thing, but that's all harmonics as well. Drums again, a big part of that actually. Obviously those weren't done on bass, but that's
that I would have been really impressed. There's the challenge for next month.
Sure. Not currently in my skill set, but let's find out. As we've interrogated this song more and more, I felt really strongly going into it that it was like this was a poor woman. It's a crime against the poor woman. I'm really on her side. I'm really and the more that we've interrogated, the more that I think, actually, is she poor? She's clearly got some money to throw around for prayers.
Yeah.
It's one aspect of this tune.
And the fact that the court are even giving her an audience, and then not only that, but they respect what she's come to say. I think that's all indicators that this is a woman of a higher class.
Yeah. Which, I mean, should it change it? But I mean, I wanted her to be poor. That was a really important part of this for me. And actually, if she isn't, that changes my feelings towards it. So I think that's another reason for maybe doing another version that's a little bit more abstracted.
Yeah, I think it's something that comes up so often with folk songs and folk stories. Is we want them to tell a particular story through our modern ideas, but actually sometimes the stories just don't.
Yep.
They're not trying to give the grand message that we expect them to be trying to give. give.
Yeah,
They're actually just a story that is like of interest to people at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, people project their own class expectations onto these tunes.
Yeah.
And they've always done that. We find that in the different versions that we found for this, haven't we?
Yeah.
There's quite a few, and they seem to really vary in terms of what the voice and what the emphasis is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it sounds great. 2 versions. What a treat for the rest of us.
Sure. You're welcome.
We listen to a bit more.
Yeah.
Never injured any of you. Spare me the life of my Geordie. He never stole or bad. He never murdered any. If he's your one of the king's wild deer, it was only to feed his family. He never stole and he never slew. He never murdered any. He never injured.
Great. Well, I enjoyed that. We're going to listen to some of yours now, aren't we?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Geordie.
Here we go. This is Geordie. They're all called Geordie.
Oh, spare me the life of my Georgie. Oh, saddle me a milk-white steed, or bridle me a pony, and I'll ride to Newcastle jail. I won't stop to ease my hunger, till in the north they hear me.
Great. I think this is lovely. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Oh, I'm glad you think that. Yeah, so just finishing off there, we were talking about your conflict around whether she's rich or poor. And I also had that, like, who is this woman? And still centering it on the woman. Having gone to the child ballads page for this song, and there's like 17 versions they've got listed there or something. I was then if anything, even more confused about who this woman was, because there's just so many different versions.
Right.
What I went for is, as I said in the last episode, I wanted to centre it on this woman's sort of fight. And then it doesn't really matter where she's come from. It's more about, this is the situation, here's her sort of fighting to make this right.
Yeah.
And it's in a minor key, but I don't think it sounds really sad for that.
No.
That's how I try to sort of strike that balance between, it's a bit of a desperate situation, but actually here's someone who's fighting still.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I did resolve that question of like, what background is she from, is there's quite a few versions of the child ballads here which start by listing where she's been a lady of.
Right.
Which is then how I start my first verse. And I think the implication there is, so there's one version here that says, first I was Lady of Black Rigs, and then into Kincraigie. I was the mistress of Pit Fan and Madam of Kincraigie, and now I'm the Lady of Gite. So there's an implication that this woman who's like, whether she's like lost husbands before, or she's had to move on for some reason or another. But like, how many more times can she move on? Really, this one has to work.
Yeah, it's quite the CV, isn't it?
It's quite the CV, yeah. But probably not the sort of career where you want to be moving around jobs too much.
Right, yeah.
So that was my sort of resolution for that. So whatever class she's from, actually the loss of a husband is the loss of the the breadwinner within the family, and therefore means bad times for the family left behind. So again, in that third verse, focusing on the kids, the 9 children in the West, and she's still pregnant. We've got to do something about this. I like swimming across the Mersey as well. There was a couple of versions.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
Actually, in more than one version, she swims across at Queen's Ferry, which is near Liverpool.
Right.
But I needed only 2 syllables, so I went with Mersey.
Mersey, sure. Bit of license there.
Yeah. I sort of wanted to create this sort of mythical hero who's gone on a quest.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's got that vibe, actually.
Yeah. It's like, we're off. Riders of Rohan, we're going to save this man, sort of thing.
And you've put in a chorus.
I put in a chorus, of course I have, yeah. And the chorus...
It's really nice.
So the chorus is the bit where I break with the melody that we shared. Because in the verse, I am singing a very drawn-out version of the melody that we shared. And the backing vocals sing a simplified version of the melody that we shared. The guitar is playing a variation on that.
The guitar's lovely, actually. A really nice little lick you've got going.
Yeah.
That kind of comes in at the end of phrases.
Yeah, so there's that guitar in the chorus where it's filling in between the vocals, but there's also the guitar in the second verse, which is playing the melody, roughly. But it's slightly out of time with the melody that's being sung, so you get a bit of sort of call and response there.
It's a jam tune, this. It's got quite a jam to it.
Yeah. One of the bits I really like, actually, is because I hate programming drums. I just hate doing it. And so I got a very simple rhythm with a kick, a snare and a hi-hat, and I thought there needs to just be something in there a little bit more, because it's actually quite slow, so it needs lots of little notes in there to keep it feeling like it's moving. If it's just the kick and the snare, they're very spaced out and you lose that momentum.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, okay, so something like toms, and then I put in the thumb piano. There's like a thumb piano rolling around in the background. It's very deep in the mix, but like it's there, and it's almost acting like toms, and they are pitched, these notes, but in a similar way as you would pitch toms, and the idea there is that they're providing that movement, and I think that works.
Do you know what? That's really nice. That it's almost got a sort of clave kind of use. That's how you're using it. I think it's like sort of slightly offbeat.
Yeah, exactly.
Emphases and things. Yeah. Talk about how you've varied the texture and what sounds you've used in different verses, because you've got some sort of very synthy, very organy.
Oh, there's actually a particularly nice thing that comes in that first chorus. It sort of gives you the intro to that first chorus, which is a synth which is just going a bit mental, and like it's controlled in a random way. So every time I export the track, it sounds slightly different, which is quite fun.
Have you used an LFO for that?
Yeah. So basically, it's a saw wave synth with a bandpass filter, and the cutoff for the bandpass is being controlled semi-randomly.
Right, yeah.
But it happens completely differently every time. So there were a couple of times I exported the track and I thought, oh, actually, that doesn't sound very good. I'm going to have to go back and export it again. So that the thing does...
So you get the one you want.
I'm sure at some point I could have exerted a greater degree of control and sort of printed that to audio and had a version that I liked and just stuck with that. But I thought just let it go randomly, see what happens.
Yeah.
It's nice to have it a bit different every time.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think this is a great track. I really enjoyed it.
Good.
I think it's quite an album track, but I don't mean that as a pejorative.
I think there's a lot to go back for, and I think if you listen with headphones and closely, then there's all sorts of little things that'll jump out to you that you maybe didn't realise on a first listen, which is cool.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Layers.
Like
an onion.
Hot.
Let's have a little bit. Let's listen to a bit more. Killing him will kill us all. Oh, spare me the life of the Geordie. Oh, saddle me a milk-white steed, or bridle me a pony, and I'll ride to Newcastle jail. So
we're going to now listen to some versions submitted by other listeners. So we'll play a clip of each after we've talked about them. But if you want to listen along to the full versions, then there's a link to the playlist in the description of this episode. They're great, so we really recommend you do this.
Yeah. Cool, so first track in the playlist is a submission from Ian Jackson. Should we have a listen?
Let's do it.
For stealing 16 deer, I was sent down to the hanging tree. There wasn't any water or a...
Nice one, lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great, yeah. His longest tune yet.
Yeah, it's a proper ballad.
Yeah, coming in at a hot 5 minutes 20.
Yeah, we've had some long ones this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this the longest one on the playoff? But no, I think Catapholc is even longer.
Yeah, but asymptotes is up near 6 minutes or something like that.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Obviously, lots of cover in this tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the standout feature for me is the harmonica play.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? It's cool.
It's lovely.
Yeah. I didn't know he could play like that. I don't think I've heard him play like that on any of his other tunes.
No. But this is great.
The sound of it's really good as well. I feel like any reverb that I'm hearing is the natural reverb of the space, but it works really well.
It does, and it's really fitting as well. It really drives the tune forward at points.
Yeah. It's like a whale. I think, it's wonderful.
Yeah. It's those, but those chords, I think, again.
You know what? There's a particular chord I really love in this, and I want to pull it out. I've got my guitar here. I'm gonna just.
Oh, go on. All right.
Because it's this wonderful chord which I'm definitely gonna steal, but it's basically like an E minor. It's an E minor, but then he's got like 3rd fret on the G string,
Right.
which is like the flat 5th.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a wonderful chord. That, you know, I'm a big fan of like crunchy chords, and that one really does it for me. I'm gonna be using that in something.
Has he still got the 5th in as well?
Yeah, because it's the clash between 3rd fret on the G string and the open B string, which is that semitone sort of dissonance.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
It's lovely. And just sticking on it, you know, often when you choose that note, then you might slide off it quite quickly. But it really like emphasizes. I think it's great.
Yeah, and it resolves back nicely to the home chord, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, and it's another rewrite, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's written first person from Geordie, which actually we've had a few takes in, taking the man's perspective.
You know, clearly he's not happy.
Clearly, you wouldn't be really, would you? Although actually, having said that, in some of these takes he is. So
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant work. Thanks, Ian. So the next take we've got is from Kev Pritchard. Let's have a listen.
As I came over London Bridge, 'twas on one morning early, I overheard a fair lady lamenting for her Geordie. Come saddle me my milk white steed, come saddle me my pony, that I may go to London's court to plead for the life of Geordie.
Cool. It's lovely, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, what I really like here is that it means that, apart from this Spare Me the Life by, I don't know, Hevelwood, whoever that is.
Whoever that is, yeah.
Apart from that, the playlist starts with 2 acoustic takes, which we haven't had loads of acoustic takes through this series.
No.
But they're really different as well.
Yeah.
Ian's is like quite raucous, the harmonica wailing over the top, but this is much softer and finger picking elements. So it's really nice to have that contrast between the 2 acoustic versions.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the finger picking it's really nice, kind of quite jaunty tune, if anything.
Yeah, and it changes throughout. He hasn't just chosen one finger picking pattern and stuck with it. There's variations that develop that throughout the tune, which I really
and
appreciate.
that little turnaround at the end of the verses, which is a really nice touch as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit Mixolydian or something. I don't know quite, but it reminds me a little bit of like Dear Prudence or Beatles-esque sort of twist on it. And the addition of the G minor chord is really nice. So he's taken the chords that we shared, but he's just put in a G minor instead of a G major, which just gives it that slight sorrowful tinge.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
Like throws you off a little bit, but it's really effective.
Yeah, and similarly to that, there's sort of not very much resolution through it. So each verse ends not quite on the chord you're expecting it to. And then and then also when you get to the end of the tune, the last chord it's not the home chord, it's not the tonic chord. It's like you never quite settle, and adding that on top of the use of the G minor chord, I think it's compelling.
Yeah. Lovely. So he says he's pieced together a few different versions, lyrics wise. Yeah, he says he's not a confident singer, so he's kept it brief. But I think his singing's really nice on this, really appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's that last line that he's kind of left it to finish on that slightly baffling tale where it's like, well, you know, you're still getting punished, but you know, we're gonna give you like the top quality punishment.
Yeah. Like, this isn't just punishment. This is M&S punishment.
That's it.
Yeah. No, it's great. Love it.
Next up, we've got a take from James Parrish.
Cool. Let's have a listen.
When she first took the letter on, she was bathed in red and rosy, but she had no better word till she wallowed like a lily, till she wallowed like a lily, till she wallowed like a lily.
So I don't know what you made of that.
Yeah, right.
I think it's quite nice to hear a take from someone who quite openly disdains this song. So he sent us some comments about this. Who said that he didn't really click with this. He couldn't really find a kind of way in. Didn't really sympathise with anyone particularly. He was not with his full equipment. Basically, he's got a chord organ and GarageBand on an iPad, I assume. Yeah, so just kind of threw this together. But like he says, he wants to capture the ignorance and laziness of it.
Right. Yeah, and distancing himself from it.
Yeah.
Like purposefully distancing himself from the material.
Absolutely. And the way he spits out the lyrics is quite like, I actually quite like it.
Yeah. Also, there's something that on first listen I thought it was a hi-hat, but I think it's just him going right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which again is like a spit, right?
Exactly. And like, there's that last line that he ends on that he repeats, like, wallows like a lily, like,
yeah.
And then the kind of token, it's funny. Like,
was it in the last episode when Goodnight Mistress submitted and I said, I love someone who can really let an outro sit? But this is a whole other level.
yeah. Is it like the last minute is just
yeah, I think it's a full minute of, I don't know whether it's like an echo that's being allowed to carry on. It's just some noise.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed this one.
Yeah. Well, I like his style as well, that lazy sort of delivery.
Yeah. I'm fully in favour of people. If your response to some of these tunes is, I don't really like it, so I'm going to make it tear it to shed.
Butcher it.
Yeah, I'm just going to butcher it. That's absolutely fine. That's great. I enjoyed that for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So next up, we've got another take from John Paiva. Let's have a listen.
Warden said she'd been here again. Some southern drunk screaming about her Geordie. So I thought your name was Jon. That's right, boss. Do us a favour. Move her on.
So I think John's really hit his stride with this one.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Because he's been doing these rewrites for a while now, and this one feels like a really coherent vibe for him.
Yeah.
I could quite happily listen to 9 more versions of that on an album.
Yeah. It's super theatrical, isn't it? That's what I like about it. It's like he's properly acting this part. So he's taken the persona of Georgie, and again, speaking from the first person. It's a different story. There are 2 women involved.
Yeah.
But it's still this idea of travelling up and down the country and ending up in prison. And being happy that he's ended up in prison because it means that he doesn't have to deal with the stresses of life, basically.
Yeah. He says, if I'd known how easy prison was, I'd have never gone to school. Yeah, like, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's just like a proper character piece.
He cites inspirations such as Baxter Dury, who's Ian Dury's son, of course, Blur's Park Life, John Spencer Blues Explosion, post-punk beat poetry stuff, he says. This really reminds me of a particular track. There's a song called Framed by the Sensational Alex Harvey Band or something like that. Sensational Alex Harvey,
right? Which
is similarly talking about prison and delivered in that sort of spoken style. You should go and check that out if you like this, because it's a brilliant track.
Yeah.
But it's got that Frank Zappa vibe. The piano's brilliant. In fact,
the guitar as well.
Yeah, that solo you get is really, really cool.
Yeah. But the centerpiece really is the shout along chorus, isn't it?
Yeah. The chants. He's got good gang vocals there.
Yeah, and then at the end you've got the sort of screaming over the top of it, like really, thrown himself into this.
He
one.
says intentional messiness and trying to get a garage rock DIY feel. It's great.
He's definitely attained it.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Lucy Brissenden.
Geordie never robbed no storehouses. He never thieved from any. And I shall neither eat nor drink till London town should sing. So did I ride down, and in the King's Hall were lords and ladies plenty. Down on my knees I did fall, to beg for the life of my Geordie. Oh, he never stopped.
Man, you know what? I've been really excited to talk about this one because this is performed on the RAF.
Right, what's the RAF, Jack?
So this is an instrument not many people would have come across, but it's RAF stands for Reverse Action Piano Harp. And now it's like an auto harp, if you've ever come across an auto harp. The idea being that with an auto harp, what you do is you press down a wooden bar that goes across the strings, and it mutes some of the strings so that when you strum the strings, it produces a chord.
Right.
But this one works slightly different because you've got a piano keyboard. It's not just bars which make chords, but it's like a piano keyboard, so you can hold down either chords or individual notes. And the key to it is that when you lift the key, lift the piano key, it mutes the string. So there's a lot more variation you can achieve than you could with a traditional auto harp.
Right, okay.
It's a really, really fascinating instrument, and I love that it's being represented here on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds great.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
A really lovely tone, isn't it? The word magical comes to mind, but I don't really want that to be my lasting impression of it. It's, but you know what I mean, right?
I think, what I have to say is, like, the piano harp particularly comes into its own just on that outro.
Yeah.
We were just saying as we were listening to it, something like the way she runs down the strings for just the last few notes. It just throws in a bit of colour to that last chord, like a bit of mystery, a little bit of unfinished business or something. Really nice way to end the song.
So she had some interesting thoughts on this in terms of the lyrics and the content of the tune. So
a lot of insight there. Let's have that.
Yeah. So first of all, she's picked up that a lot of the versions tend to have it being told from a third party perspective, but she thought it's a bit odd, really, that people wouldn't just do it from the woman's perspective.
Well, that was my feeling as well. Really.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the particularly interesting thing about her comments is this question that's constantly come up for us about class and what class these people from. She suggests there's a disparity between Georgie's class and the ladies' class.
Yeah.
And that's where the conflict comes from. So one of them is from an upper class and one of them is from a lower class.
Yeah.
And
she couldn't work out which.
Yeah.
Which neither could we, but she's decided in her version that it's the woman who's poor, perhaps because of her behaviour, that she's sort of behaving sort of out of desperation with very little decorum.
Yeah.
That's what's driven it. But I think that's a really interesting insight.
Really nice when someone's gone away and like read loads of versions of this tune, done more research than we have.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not a tune that we recognise, so we think she's come up with her own tune for this one.
Yeah.
And it's really lovely, actually. I really love...
It's really nice.
I love the chords movement she's got in there. There's quite a bit of movement in there, sort of offbeat rhythms occasionally, and the way that works with the melody is just a really nice listen.
And the way the backing vocals weave together, because there are parts where it's two lines of harmony right on top of each other, but there's parts where the line comes slightly after in the backing vocals where it does in the lead vocals, and that intertwining sort of flowing through is really wonderful.
And then there's that one line that she throws in. There's a male voice that comes in. Is that the judge's voice?
I think so, yeah. He's being that's the voice that is condemning Georgie, yeah, with a bit more sort of reverb on it, and like it's almost spoken, that line.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Theatrical again.
Yes,
it's great. Really, really paints the image.
It
really
is.
Brings it to life.
It is. So yeah, this is a really rich version, and we loved it. Thanks for sending it in, Lucy.
Yeah, love it. Cool. So next up, we've got Cerys Hafana, another one with wonderful backing vocals and harmonies. Let's go. Should we have a listen?
Yeah.
It is no murder George have done, not have he killed any, but he stole 16 of the king's fat deer and sold them to the army. The judge looked over his right shoulder, seeming very sorry. He says, "My dear, you are now too late. He is condemned already. 6 babies I have got."
Another wonderful take from Cerys.
Yeah.
It's a bit different, this one, more piano-led. Previous ones have made a lot more use of harp and...
It's that mini piano.
Mini
isn't it?
piano,
It's quite
yeah,
often
yeah.
in there, and guitars. But she says that she started with the piano part, the piano isn't quite in concert pitch, so she couldn't really layer other instruments
Right.
on top of it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
very vocal-led as well as
Yeah.
being piano-led.
Classic home piano problems, yeah. She said that the story of the song seemed to be like something straight out of Poldark.
Right.
So she wanted to make it sound a bit more cinematic.
It is so cinematic. There's something about that piano part. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah. And she says in an ideal world that she'd have a string section and a timpani, which, wouldn't we all? But she only had her voice and a door to hit, and it sounds so good for that.
Yeah, that kick drum is a door being hit, isn't it? It's really good.
She says she recorded it on, just an old laptop and Cubase.
I mean, the vocals are so good, aren't they?
Yeah, her layering, it kind of opens out halfway through. You've got her kind of ooze over the top top as well.
Yeah, so what happens halfway through is she switches melody.
Yes.
So in the first half, she's using the melody, which is the one we shared, which has been done by various people. I used that melody as well. And then in the second half, once it becomes clear that Geordie is condemned and it's too late, she switches to the melody used by Aeneas Mitchell, which is also the one you used, right?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. I didn't pick up on that first time. Maybe that's because I haven't got a musical ear or something.
Oh, no, yeah.
but going back to it, it's really nice. I think the piano as well, what it does is it pushes the whole thing forward. And like I felt with this song, and like some of our other contributors have said, I think when we come on to Asymptotes, this will come up as well, is it's that fighting thing. It's about a character who's not stopping and is sort of relentlessly pursuing a goal.
Driving it forward in this kind of desperation kind of
Just constant. It doesn't hardly ever lets up. I think it does right at the end for the last verse.
Yeah, where you get this admission that, I don't know how I didn't spot this before, but the way she sings it really drives it home that, like, the judge says, he can hang by a particularly nice chain because he courted a noble lady. I don't know why I didn't pick up on it because it's really obvious actually the way it's put like that. Great. So next up we've got Blue Jeans, which is Stuart Clark and others.
Et al.
Quite
cool.
Let's have a listen.
Come, saddle my steed. Oh, George shall be hung. Oh, 6 babies I have with.
So this is really nice, isn't it? I think Stuart's building on some of the things he's done before here with reharmonizing the melody and putting in some quote-unquote jazzy chords.
Yeah, we were saying he likes his major sevenths.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But adding that vocal in, and actually the vocalist here is Sally Batchelor, and I really, really like her delivery. It's very plain, straight down the middle, no frills. It reminds me a little bit of like Best Coast and singers like that.
Right,
Very much just delivering the melody. Very, very clean, and I like that.
Yeah, I guess there's a full band arrangement then, because when the drums come in, that's a really nice moment as well.
Yeah.
It's that very relaxed sort of lounge feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's, it's something to sit in for a bit. But I think the standout bit for us is the chorus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a nice melody for the chorus.
And then, again, a few kind of reharms to just kind of jolt you out of your place a little bit.
Yeah, it's a very catchy chorus. And on the last word, I think both times you get that sort of echo off the back of hung. Like it's like that word is being allowed to just hang there. Like it's a short word and you just get hung. I think that's pretty cool. I think in a take like this, it would be easy to drop the specific rhythm on the word Geordie, but they are always doing Geordie, not Geordie.
Right, yeah,
they're still getting that sort of Scotch snap feel, which is there in the original tune. I like that. Yeah, I mean, this might be considered a lounge jazz sort of take if it was just an instrumental, but I think it's the vocal that really sets it apart. It's that no frills attitude that brings it back into the realms of being, I mean, I know people don't like their music being called a pop song, but, I mean, almost a bit punky, and I know that's probably seen also as a massive
faux pas.
Yeah, but it does remind me of that sort of Best Coast vibe. Anyway, really like it. It's lovely.
No, it's a great take.
So next up, we've got Asymptotes with But I'll Fight.
Yeah, let's give this a listen. Cool, so this is a really nice take from Asymptotes as well. In comparison to some of their earlier takes, it's a lot less percussion heavy.
Yeah.
A lot more vocal led, which is really nice to hear, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's less going on in there than in some of their other music, but that makes it like a study of this vocal line, which I think is a cool approach.
Yeah, it's really cool. Again, using this Dreamtonics synth
Yeah.
to get the vocals.
Yeah, which is crazy because it sounds so good. I
doesn't it?
still
Yeah.
haven't gone and checked it out, but I really want to. And apparently there's all sorts of different packs that come with this plugin. So in this one, she's used the Eleanor Forte voice pack.
Yeah, we were also trying to work out as we were listening to it what the artwork is. I think it might be like an old style illustration of gallows that's been like sheared to a really strong degree, and then it made into like a repeating pattern because it almost has like a sort of distorted wood texture.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it is, and I hope I'll get corrected if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I couldn't tell at all until you pointed out it was just sort of like a glitchy pattern, I thought. But yeah, you're right.
Once again, artwork has been one of those amazing surprise benefits of doing this, seeing really cool visual stuff as well as audible stuff. But yeah, I like that the drums are much more straightforward, actually. I like that there's just a really it's a really solid bed.
Yeah.
Quite a slow moving groove on the one of the three.
And I feel like it has to be to hold down these vocal lines, which we'll go into a bit more depth on this, but the first time I listened through, I was just sort of nodding my head, listening in the background, and I didn't detect the fact that then on a second listen, I went back and I was trying to count bar lines, and actually it's quite disorientating.
Yeah. So what they've got is a vocal melody that is 9 bars long and one that's 8 bars long, and they only really marry up after 72 bars.
Yeah.
So it's this idea of a sort of extended polyrhythm.
Yeah. Even on top of that, I think even if you only focus on one vocal, so I when I was trying to count, I was focusing on just one vocal, on the vocal on the left, and trying to count along with it. It's something to do with the fact that the phrase begins and ends with the same note, and the first note lasts like a beat, like 3 beats or something odd like that. There's just something a bit disorientating with it, and then unless you're listening right from the beginning, it's hard to know where the phrase is supposed to start. And I like that. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think Asymptotes does really well. Like, she often does these tunes that have melodies or chord patterns that just throw you in an odd place. They never quite sit neatly on your kind of bar lines. It's either the time signature is different or the emphasis is different, and you spend a long time trying to figure out where you are.
Yeah, because I got to the point where I was locked in with that vocal melody, and I got to the end of the 8 bars, and I thought, okay, no, now I understand that's how the 8-bar phrase goes. And then you get to beat 1 again, and the bass note doesn't change to where you expect. It's like, was I right?
So the tune's called But I'll Fight, and I think it's, again, managing to nail this sort of slow defiance.
So she says, I picked up a theme of fighting for a hopeless cause. Sometimes the fight is the hope.
Right, yeah.
The overlapping polyrhythmic vocals means nothing ever quite lines up and goes the way you expect, though. And this is something that I really got strongly from this, is the fight is the hope. I think that's a really powerful thing.
It's great. It's a lovely tune.
Yeah. Great. Next up, we've got Catapholc with Too Late to Save. Let's have a listen.
Great, so this is another lovely warm bath of dark noise from Catapholc here, and it's a pleasing 8 minutes long as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which we've sort of been crying out for even longer.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of nice stuff going on. It's kind of bubbling over throughout, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, volume, pedal swells, and it's created these weird bird noises.
Yeah.
Using the bass strings, which is really cool.
Yeah, sort of scraping the bass strings, and with the delay on that means it sort of flutters off into the darkness, sort of thing.
Yeah, sort of really digging into the ambient rule book, as it were.
As usual, we've got a full effects chain here, which particularly, actually of particular importance, it sounds, was this pedal called a dweller, which I've not heard of before, but he says it's a weird phase/delay pedal from Old Blood Noise Endeavours. So he says he's not usually a fan of phaser on traditional rock guitar, but along with the delay it works.
Right, yeah. You just get the sense that that they just spend a long time sat around, like just making the most out of a lot of material, but almost like a kind of inventor in the tool shed sort of.
Yeah, right.
vibe.
Yeah,
That's what I get from it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I just spent a lovely afternoon making noise.
Yeah, and actually we were having a conversation a little while ago where he has experimented with building a couple of pedals himself, so it is very much that, like,
Right, yeah,
tinkering in the shed sort of thing.
Yeah,
Sculpting sound, love it.
Like, again, just really dragging out the melody until you can't really
Yeah, I can't
discern
really
it
fit-
anymore, yeah.
Just a point here. He says another influence was 2814, who is not someone I've heard of, but maybe they're worth checking out if you like this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if we should say this, but there's rumour of a Catapholc asymptotes collaboration.
Ooh, we can only hope. Maybe for the last episode.
Let's just strongly suggest that would be a great idea and leave it at that. But yeah, no, it's cool. I hope you enjoyed that one. We did. Great. So last up, we have a take from Jon and Jane Hearson. Should we give this a listen?
Let's have a listen. Love it.
Great. So this is Jon and Jane Hearson. Lovely take there, by the way.
Yeah.
Jon and Jane Hearson are my parents.
Big reveal! Hooray!
Big reveal. There you go. Yeah. No, lovely. Really, really chuffed that they've sent something in, actually.
Yeah. I want to drop in here and say it's been really wonderful through the process of doing this podcast to hear how many people are listening with their parents. There's an intergenerational thing that's going on that I think these songs allow. It's really cool. But, you know, if you're listening to it at home with your parents, like, let us know. We're always really keen to hear about that.
My parents are both in a very literal sense and a kind of, you know, they're the reason I'm here today doing a music podcast.
That is quite literal, yes.
With that in mind, I'd say this is a really lovely take.
Yeah, the piano is really nice. I think you can tell it's a classically trained pianist. Is he classically trained? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's my mum on piano. Jane is on piano.
Okay, yeah.
And Jon is on the violin there.
Right. Yeah, I think the piano lines that they've written for this are really lovely. Like they fit the style of the song, but at the same time they've got that intricacy that you want from a good classical piece, really.
Totally. There's almost a bit of that sort of Renaissance style. They've kind of drawn out, because I think partly the modal tune with that style to me kind of gives it a bit of a Renaissance vibe.
Yeah, I almost want it on a harpsichord. Know what I mean? Yeah, with those rolling, like, broken chords arpeggiated.
Yeah, definitely. It's lovely. My dad's an accomplished improviser on the violin there, so.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they've based this on the Joan Baez version.
Oh, yeah, I forgot she did a version.
Yeah, partly it's the brevity of it, and but also the words, I think, that really spoke to them for this one. The thing is, I've got it in my mind that they're, you know, stood around the piano in their living room recording this.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful thing in that. That's music making. That's, you know, how music has been made. Traditionally, yeah. So there's a real kind of going back to roots element to this.
Yeah, I agree. The tone of the recording is really nice. I know it's only been made on a phone, but, like, there's something about the way it's rolled off the high end, so it's not too bright, which is it's warm, and it is cozy. It's a cozy recording.
Yeah. And do you know what? I've not heard my mum and dad ever do anything like this, really.
Oh, cool.
Sort of singing together, putting together an arrangement. So this is a really, you know, that I've got an extra warm feeling because of that.
Was it a surprise for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it? Out of the blue?
Out of the blue, yeah.
Great.
I just got a message saying, oh, by the way, we've got something. We're going to send you it. So.
Yeah, good, cool. Oh, well, it's great. I love it. Thanks so much for sending it in.
Yeah. So yeah, a huge thanks to everyone who submitted a track for this episode. We're really blown away by the response, and we're looking forward to hearing what you come up with for the next one. Okay, Jack, you have picked for the final episode of this series, you've picked Young William.
Yeah.
Why have you done that?
Well, you may very well ask. I don't know if I thought we'd get this far, to be honest, Tim.
Okay, well, we have, and you've now got to answer for it, so let's go.
Well, look, here's why I chose it. I chose it because it was collected from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
We both have a connection with Yorkshire.
We do.
Where I found it was in this book of songs, same book of songs I chose Bitterwithy from, which is songs collected by Vaughan Williams, edited by Roy Palmer. And he collected it from Yorkshire. There are versions that pop up all over the place. I found out that the Bodleian Library has a great archive of broadside ballads that they've uploaded, like the original prints of.
Right.
And so this version through the 1800s pops up in Manchester and London. But who knows, it could be older than that. I also think it's quite a fun song.
Okay.
No one dies. No one dies.
No one
in
dies.
this
That's
story.
a change. That's making a change.
There's no one who's meek and mild and is fighting for their life. It's a bit of a romp, and I think it's something that I can imagine very well being told down the pub with some guys who are just having a laugh, a beer and a laugh.
Yeah.
So here's the story, right? Young William, he's a handsome, roving sailor boy, and he's courting young Sally. He asks her for a kiss, but she says, no, I can't do that. That's unbecoming of a young woman. It wouldn't be good, for me in society, sort of thing.
Of course, yeah.
She says, what you can do, kiss me after dark.
Right.
So, there's a lot of references to kissing in this song. Use your imagination.
Okay. I mean, I know what a kiss looks like.
Yeah, sure. Rolling in the grass and kissing after dark. We've all been there. So what happens then is the captain overhears this conversation and he says he thought that he might kiss the girl and she be none the worse. No one's going to lose out if the captain has a little kiss. So what he does is he finds out the time, the place they're going to meet. At that time, he sends for William. So William has to go and take care of some duties. And the captain wears William's clothes and goes out to the park, meets her and kisses her when it should have been William kissing her. Now, the story goes on to say that William and Sally get married and she becomes pregnant, but she becomes pregnant a little too early. So 6 months after they get married, she safely got her bed, so she became pregnant.
Right.
And William sort of wonders about this, but he never really questions it. And the captain, of course, knows what's happened. Not only the captain knows what's happened, but he gets made godfather to the boy,
right,
and throws down £500 for this kid's to raise this child. And I think the funny thing about this is right at the end, it says Sally smiles to herself when thinking of the park where the captain rolled her on the grass and kissed her in the dark. So Sally knows as well.
Right.
Sally wasn't fooled that this was William. I don't think Sally was taken advantage of. Sally had quite a good time kissing the captain in the park, and she's got 500 quid to raise the boy with, and William's completely clueless. I mean, you feel a little bit sorry for William, but he doesn't really question it at all.
Right.
So I think it's quite a jolly romp. No one really gets hurt in this song. It's a fun story that you would have told down the pub with your mates.
I mean, I think this one makes me quite uncomfortable, but anyway, like lots of this. Stories like this always make me uncomfortable anyway.
Well, and that's the thing, is I'm aware that there are undercurrents that might not be just such a jolly romp.
Well,
but go on, why do you feel uncomfortable about it?
Well, I mean, for a start, I would argue we're on slightly rapey territory.
Yes.
Like, I think that's hard to avoid.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'll be interested to hear interpretations of this, how people stick to the themes. Do people develop them? Do people change that particular aspect of it? Because that makes me very uncomfortable.
You could take a very serious angle on this. I guess in the context of this tune, we're saying Sally knows and she's happy with it, and actually it's a laugh, but it certainly condones the idea of fooling women into kissing you.
Yeah. There is no recompense. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, you can look at it in a more innocent light. That there is, it's a oft told story. The one of the girl who's betrothed to the guy, or the guy who she knows is the nice guy, but really, her heart belongs to the ruffian.
Right. Yeah.
That's a classic. You'll find that in every. Yeah, I mean. Pirates of the Caribbean, for one.
Yeah.
That's a big theme in that, and so it's not that this isn't a story that's particularly controversial from that sense, but I think, I'm just interested to know what people do with it. Okay, so because this tune hasn't been recorded as much as some of the other ones, we're going to have to rely on you, Jack.
Oh,
so,
dear.
Do you want to give us a rendition?
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, in the book where I got it from, it's only the melody printed, so I've added these chords to it, which puts it in like the Mixolydian mode, but
Right.
it's just 3 chords, D, C, and G. I'll give you a quick blast of the first verse, which you might also use as a chorus as well, I guess.
If you love choruses as much as you do. Yeah.
I play it quite fast and jolly, but like, yeah, it's just an idea. Here you go. So it goes.
Cool.
So here's to every young man who's up for a lark, and here's to every young maid who's up to the mark. And when her lover press her, she will make this remark: you may kiss me where you will, my love, but kiss me after dark.
Oh,
Lovely.
lovely. So do you know what you're going to do with it yet? Have you had any thoughts?
I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a really weird one, but it's not often done, and I think there's a freedom that comes with that. So whereas with Geordie, I felt very overcome with the amount of stuff that's been written about and the amount of diversity of this tune. Actually, this is one that just hasn't been sung very much.
No.
And so I think there's mileage there.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a lesson for us all, really. If you don't really like a tune, just turn it into something you'll like.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. That's what people have only ever done.
That's the modus operandi of folk music and this podcast.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing how you interpret this.
Oh man, what a great episode. I've really enjoyed myself.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening. And just a reminder, if you want to take part and learn Young William along with us, go and check out our Facebook, Twitter or SoundCloud pages. There you'll find everything you need to get started. There's a score, there's a chord sheet, there's a sheet of lyrics. Links to these pages are in the description of this episode.
Yep, and our next episode is out on the 21st of September. So if you'd like your version to be included in the podcast, then get it to us by Monday 14th of September. That's the 14th of September to get your versions included. If you can't manage that date, then please do send your recordings whenever you can, as we'll be continuing to share them across our social media pages.
We always reply to messages when they come in, and we're really keen to make it as easy as possible for you to get involved. So whatever stage you're at, if you want some feedback, you want some advice, you've got any questions, just get in touch and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, and as always, this is for absolutely everyone to take part in, regardless of your style or musical ability. We're just really looking forward to hearing your fresh takes.